Hey everybody, it's low carb and keto nutrition specialist Amy Berger from 2itnutrition.com bringing you another video in doing keto without the crazy. If you are a regular viewer of my channel, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I kind of owe you an apology. It's been a while since I've released a video like this. I've done a couple of live YouTubes where I just kind of popped in and chatted with whoever happened to be watching at the time, but it's been a while since I pre-recorded something and sent it out into the world. So I don't really have an excuse other than I just wasn't in the mood to make videos. It's not that I'm out of ideas. I have a long list of ideas that I could get to, so it wasn't, writer's block, so to speak, or video vlogger's block, video maker's block. I just wasn't in the mood, but I just have to get over that. There's a lot of things we're not in the mood to do on a daily basis, and we do them anyway. So Amy, get over yourself. All right, before we get into today's topic, in case you're new to my channel, I want to bring your attention to my book, The Stall Slayer. It is about breaking fat loss stalls on ketogenic or low carb diets. It is available on Amazon. There's a link in the notes below. You can. It's available as a paperback. It's available for Kindle, or you can download a PDF version. Stallslayer.com. Again, there's a link to all of that. If you buy the paperback, your copy will not have this gray line across it. This was the proof copy that Amazon sent me just to when you self-publish a book, you have to order a copy for yourself to read through it and make sure it's all good before you send it out into the world. So your book will be all beautiful without the gray. So breaking fat loss stalls or being stopped or plateaued in fat loss is the #1 reason people write to me for help. So if you are having trouble losing weight on low carb or keto and you think you're doing everything right and you are sick and tired of looking at everyone else's progression pictures and everyone else's before and afters and you're kind of at a standstill, stallslayer.com. Even if you are not stalled in fat loss on a low carb or keto diet, but you want to be reminded of some of the basic principles of why and how this way of eating works, I also recommend checking out a copy of The Stall Slayer, because obviously it's intended to help people break fat loss stalls, but there's a lot of other information in there that's myth busting and setting the record straight about a lot of the craziness, keto without the crazy. Take away the crazy, get back to the basic principles and strategies that work, and you have the Stall Slayer. All right, second order of business before we move on. Check out again, there's links in the notes. I am speaking at 2 upcoming virtual keto low carb conferences. There's an organization called Low Carb USA that typically puts on 2 or 3 live events a year. There's always one in San Diego. There's usually one in, I don't remember, it's West Palm Beach or some part of Florida. And last year they had one in Seattle. Now, obviously this year, due to the virus situation, all these conferences are canceled, but thank goodness, many of them are being done totally virtually, so you can still see talks from all these speakers, have Q&As. So links to 2 of them below. They are coming up soon. One of them is this week. It starts August 27th, and that's the Low Carb USA virtual San Diego. I am giving a talk on ketogenic therapies for neurological and neurodegenerative disorders. So again, if you're new to my channel, you don't know who I am, I wrote a book called The Alzheimer's Antidote, which is about using ketogenic diets as a nutritional intervention for Alzheimer's disease and cognitive impairment, cognitive decline. Over the years since I wrote that book came out in 2017, in just a few years that have passed since then, I've since learned that there's a lot of overlap between Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, possibly ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, traumatic brain injury, all these different brain nervous system things that lead us to believe that keto is worth trying. Not that it's a cure, not that it's a slam dunk that works for everybody, but if you want to know even why would we even look at ketogenic diets or other keto type interventions for neurodegenerative conditions, do check out the links below. That Low Carb USA is my first talk, and then I'm giving the same talk for the Keto Adapted virtual conference put on by Maria and Craig Emmerich. So if you know Maria Emmerich from Keto Adapted, she's got a huge following. She's like Miss Queen Keto out there. She's got a ton of keto cookbooks. So she's putting on a conference. I'm actually giving the same talk, but both of these events have a live Q&A. So you will watch my talk pre-recorded, but then there is an opportunity to interact live and to ask me questions live in real time, and I can answer them. So do check out both of those events, get yourself some tickets, and let's move on because it's 5 minutes and I haven't even gotten to the topic. Okay, red light, yellow light, green light foods. If you are a professional dieter, so to speak, you know, what we lovingly refer to ourselves sometimes as professional dieters, or, you know, if you've tried any number of different types of diets in the past for whatever reason, whether it's for weight loss or anything else, many of us use the phrases red light, green light, yellow light when it comes to foods. And you can probably figure out what this means without me telling you, but in case you don't know, and yes, I'm doing this without notes, which is why it's going to be all over the place. Think of a traffic light, right? Go, slow down, stop, green, yellow, red. So how does this translate into food? Well, as a general rule, I'm going to be generalizing here. There's always exceptions. There's always a couple of people that don't fit the description, right? But in general, most of us have foods that we have no problem eating a reasonable amount of and stopping when we're satisfied, or even full, I would say, not stuffed, but full. You know, when we're ready to stop eating, we stop. It could be it could be turkey, it could be chicken, it could be cantaloupe. It doesn't have to necessarily be a low carb food, but we all have foods that, for lack of a better way to say it, are not dangerous for us. We don't have a portion control problem. It doesn't trigger us to keep eating endlessly. We just eat the amount we want to eat and we move on. There are yellow light foods, which, you know, sometimes we do okay with them. Sometimes we go a little too far. Sometimes we eat way too much. Sometimes we eat if we're not hungry, but it's just there. Like, oh, there's my X, fill in the blank, my favorite food, and I'm not hungry, I just ate an hour ago, but oh, there it is on the table in the conference room or at the party, and we'll just eat it. Or like I said, more likely it's foods that sometimes we have no problem with, but other times, for reasons maybe we don't even understand, we, you know, really overdo. And then there's the red light foods, right? I probably don't have to tell you what these are, but the red light foods are stop, do not touch, do not make part of your life. These are, this is where the line stops. And those are the foods that we really just have no self-control around whatsoever. And, you know, different people have different trigger foods, but of course, obviously a big one is sugar or anything made with sugar. So sugar, or for some people it's flour. So it could be things like cookies, cake, pastries, breakfast cereal, granola bars, you know, ice cream, anything. But it could be pasta, like we said, flour. It could be pasta. It could be bread. It could be crackers. It doesn't have to be something sweet. For some people, it could be oatmeal, plain oatmeal. Anyway, in the low carb world, some people have a very, very hard time controlling intake of nuts, cheese, and heavy cream. And this is why, if you are familiar with Dr. Westman's famous page 4 diet, which you can actually find a link to below, scroll way down in the notes, or at my website, 2itnutrition.com, there's a tab that says page 4 keto fat loss. Dr. Westman's page 4 prohibits nuts. No nuts and seeds on his page 4 approach. And there's a reason for that. It's not that nuts and seeds aren't suitable for ketogenic diets. I mean, they're pretty low, you know, very-ish low in carbs, but they are very, very high in fat. And it's, again, we embrace fat on keto. It's not that you have to worry about fat in general on keto, but when you are trying to lose body fat, you cannot eat an unlimited amount of fat. Just because something is low in carbs doesn't mean you can eat infinity amount of it. And so the issue with nuts and seeds is that they are so very highly concentrated in fat, and they're so easy to overdo, because for me personally, and maybe for you, they induce basically no satiety. I could eat a bag of almonds and not be that full. I might feel gross. I might feel psychologically bad sooner than I would feel physically ill from. They just don't fill me up. They don't induce satiety in the way that a big pork chop or a big piece of lamb or something would do. And so Nut butters are the same, right? Nut butters are even worse because you don't even have to chew them. Nut butters, you'd grab a spoon in a jar and forget about it. So some people have the same issue with cheese. Very, very easy to overdo cheese, whether it's, you sit down with that delicious block of smoked Gouda and you just have a knife and you just cut one little piece, then you cut another little piece and another little piece. Before you know it, 20 minutes later, an 8-ounce block of cheese is gone. And so to go back to page 4 again, cheese is permitted on page 4, but the quantity is limited. I think it's like 4 ounces a day maybe, which is pretty generous. I mean, 4 ounces is a good amount of cheese, but it's still limited. You can't just eat as much cheese as you want. Same thing with heavy cream. We're talking about things, heavy cream is almost pure fat. It's got a teeny tiny bit of lactose in it, teeny tiny bit of carb. Nuts and seeds have a little bit of carb as well, and cheese does too, and a little bit of protein, but they're just very, very concentrated sources of fat, and they're very delicious, very easy to overdo. These particular foods are trigger foods or binge foods or whatever you want to call it for many of us. So it's not just you. If you think you're the only one that can't control yourself around a jar of almond butter or peanut butter, you are not the only one. So many of us have come to realize that these need to be our red light foods. We cannot have them, period. Can't buy them to keep in the house. Can't even do it as a treat every now and then, because the treat would be maybe you go to the store and they now sell those little small pouches of almond butter. It's like an ounce or the normal 2 tablespoon serving. You can maybe get the 1 pouch, enjoy it, and move on with your day. But if you say, I'm gonna just get the jar because this time will be different, you know darn well this time isn't going to be different, because it wasn't different last time, and it wasn't different the time before, and it wasn't different the time before that, or the time before that, ad nauseum. And yes, I'm speaking from personal experience. Yes, I have red light foods. And again, just to sort of share something personal, red light foods, like I just said, nuts, cheese, seeds, heavy cream, even for some people it's cream cheese. It's not that these foods aren't appropriate for a ketogenic diet. It's that they are just so easy to overdo, and many of us do overdo them. If you're the rare person that has the bag of mixed nuts from Trader Joe's or whatever, and you sprinkle out a little handful and you close the bag and put it back in the cupboard, and all you have is that little handful, great. Most of us have what they call hand-to-mouth disease, or bag-to-mouth, package-to-mouth disease, where your arm just becomes this automatic lever that doesn't stop until, oh, the package is empty. That's when the lever stops doing this, right? Anyway, my red light foods, the foods that I just can't have, or can't have in the house, I'll pick that up in a second, are, I've talked about this in previous videos, mayonnaise. I cannot have a jar of mayonnaise in my house because Amy's serving of mayonnaise is not the 1 tablespoon that is on the food label on the jar. Amy's serving of mayonnaise is half a jar. And so can you gain fat on a ketogenic diet? You sure can, and I know because I've done it. That's why mayonnaise is not part of my life anymore. What else? Peanuts and peanut butter. Can't have them ever, ever, ever again. I had a very, very not good history with peanuts and peanut butter. Other nuts I don't have a problem with. Other nuts, I have nuts in the kitchen right now. They're not an issue. I do sometimes overdo, not like I did with the peanuts. And other almond, I don't even really like other nut butters, almond butter, cashew butter. They're okay, but they don't tempt me like peanut butter. So nuts in general might be a yellow light food for me. Like, most of the time I'm okay with them. Sometimes I go a little too far. But, so yeah, sour cream is another one I can't have because I'm just a weirdo. I don't just use sour cream as a condiment. Like I won't make, my fajitas minus, no tortillas, no rice and beans. I won't make my grilled meat and onions and just have a little dollop of sour cream. I'll keep the sour cream container on the table, and before you know it, half a jar of sour cream is gone, evaporated. Where did it go? It evaporated into my stomach. So can't have sour cream. And here's a little tip for you. Be realistic about your red light, green light. Well, let's talk about the green light foods, and then I'll come back, because the yellow is a little bit of a gray area, right? It's a little bit of a yellow area, I guess. Green light foods, things you have no problem with, like I was saying earlier. There's always exceptions. Do I sometimes overdo or overeat steak? Yeah. Is it possible for me to overeat fatty lamb? Yeah. But, you know, it depends on how we define overeat. It depends on how you define binge. My point is, for most people, those types of foods aren't a problem. Even something like broccoli, zucchini, carrots, cauliflower, you know, lettuce, jicama, Brussels sprouts. I mean, depending on how you cook these things, they can be really delicious. But at some point, you'll stop. Like, at some point, you will stop. And so those foods you can just have in your house, no problem. My red light foods, I will say, like with the mayonnaise especially, or the sour cream, that, and you may be in a similar position, I can have those, for example, if I'm at a restaurant, because my portion is automatically limited. The restaurant, if I ask, hey, can I have a side of mayonnaise? Not a side, but, you know, like when they ask if you want condiments or dressings, I'll like, hey, can I have some mayonnaise? They don't bring the jar of mayonnaise to me. They bring a little cup size, and they usually, it's too much. It's a pretty generous little side cup, right? But that's the maximum that I can eat, is whatever they give me. So I can do that with sour cream, like at a Mexican restaurant, for example. I can do it with mayo at a burger place or something, but I just, it's not something I can have in my house where I have unencumbered, unfettered access to it. Now, let's talk about the yellow light foods, because it's a really interesting thing. I heard something the other day that really, it's actually what inspired me to do this video. Somebody said, yellow light foods are red light foods that you're kidding yourself about. Yellow light foods are red light foods that you're in denial about. And it's kind of true. I do believe that there's yellow light really truly, where sometimes, most of the time even, you have no problem, you can do fine. Every now and then, not so great. And it's up to you whether that's a food that you would prefer to keep in the house, or you say, I can have that, but only when I'm at a restaurant or I'm at a friend's house or in some social situation where you don't have access to consume an unlimited amount of it. I recently had to add a previously yellow light food to my red light food list. And you've either had the same experience yourself, or after watching this video, you're going to go away giving it some thought, like, oh, you know, I probably am kidding myself about X, about the sugar-free chocolate. I probably am kidding myself about the sour cream or the almond butter or whatever. What is that food? Pork rinds, chicharrones, for my little Spanish, Mexican, Spanish-speaking viewers out there. I can't. My signal to stop eating is when the bag is empty. And whatever size bag that is, it could be the teeny tiny bag that you get, like they have little I mean, I live in North Carolina now, so we have 20 different kinds of pork rinds at the gas station, but they have like a little baby size bag that's the really hard cracklins, and then they have the like 3 or 5 ounce bag, and they have the big bag. It doesn't matter what size the bag is. My serving size is the bag, whether it is the little tiny bag of cracklins or the medium-sized bag or the family-sized bag. The family-sized bag of pork rinds is the Amy-sized bag of pork rinds. And so are pork rinds totally suitable, totally fine for keto? Yes. Are they totally suitable and totally fine for me? No. And I have learned that lesson enough times that I finally got hit upside the head and said, this is now a red light food. I can't have pork rinds in my house. And it's hard because at night I want something crispy and salty. And pork rinds are the perfect thing for that. And if I could eat 5 pork rinds and close the bag, it would be no problem. But I don't. I won't say I can't. Am I physically capable of doing that? Yeah. But do I? No. So it's just better for me to not have them in the house altogether. And maybe sometime in the future, I'll be able to reintroduce them. But for now, it's best to just not have them in my, within my accessibility. And it's just the way it is with dieting. I think there's, if you've heard of, sorry, my video is blurry right now. Okay, there it goes. If you've heard of Gretchen Rubin, she's a writer and a speaker who has written a lot about habit change and habit formation. And I don't know if she coined the terms, but she writes a lot about abstainers versus moderators, right? A moderator is someone who can have 5 or 6 pork rinds out of the bag and seal up the bag and be done. A moderator can have 1 tablespoon of almond butter and close the jar and put it back in the cupboard. An abstainer cannot moderate. We don't have the wiring, or with certain foods, right? We all have foods that we're, again, red light, yellow light, green light foods. We all have certain foods we're totally fine with, certain foods that are just deal breakers, line in the sand foods, red light foods. So the abstainers have to put those red lights out there. We can't moderate. And it's easier. It's like, oh man, I wish I could have pork rinds. I wish I could have peanut butter. But I know that there's no negotiating there. There's no like, oh, this time I'll just have 5. This time will be different than the 50 times in the past. No. There's only one way that that's going to end. If that jar of peanut butter makes it into my basket at the store, what's going to happen is I'm going to eat it within about 3 days. There's no possibility that that's not going to be what happens. Same thing with pork rinds. I'm going to get the pork rinds. They might stay in the cupboard for 2 weeks. I might not eat them right away, but the minute the bag is open, the bag is going to be finished. And there's no in between. There's just no possible option that that's not going to happen. So knowing that, and being aware, being painfully aware that that's how I'm wired with those particular foods, it's easier for me to abstain completely. Not that it's easy, it's not easy to abstain, but it's easier than trying to moderate, whatever the frig that even means. So, I didn't think this video would be that long, but what a shock. I made a video longer than I thought it would be. Just hope I got you thinking about this concept of red light, yellow light, green light foods. Maybe you need to play a little traffic light food Jenga. Maybe some foods need to be moved to the red light list. Maybe some green that are now yellow, or vice versa. Maybe there was a food that you once had a problem with that you don't anymore. It can happen. If you've figured out the secret to fixing that, let me know. Anyway, that's it for now. Stallslayer.com. Check out, again, Low Carb USA happening this week. I'm speaking. Maria Emmerich's Keto Adapted Virtual Conference happening. I think it starts September 1st. I'm not sure. But there's links to everything below. And that's it. My website is 2atnutrition.com. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.